Okay, we already have one guest coming through. Cynthia Passion says 1972.
Okay.
Okay. So, Aaron, we're all set. We're recording and we're live streaming. I think you can get us started. And if you want to remind people again about our meetup, that would be great.
I will do so. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn, and we are so happy to be joined with journalist Robert Leonard, who's going to talk with us a little bit as we enter the final days of the 2024 campaign. It's great to have you here, Bob. Thank you for being with us.
Happy to be here.
Before we begin our discussion, let's just cover a couple of upcoming Iowa Farmers Union events. Don't forget, December 6th and 7th, the Iowa Farmers Union annual convention is taking place in Ames, Iowa. And be sure you're checking your mailbox and your email inbox to learn all about it. We are going to have a fantastic set of speakers and workshops available. We'll be electing Farmers Union leadership, and we'll be setting the Iowa Farmers Union policy for the coming year. The keynote address will be given by Iowa author Austin Frerick and author of Barron's, and we'll be having all sorts of great opportunities to connect with one another. Again, that's December 6th and 7th in Ames, Iowa. We're really looking forward to it. Make sure you get signed up as soon as possible. I also wanted to mention that we are having a Farmers Union meetup in the Northwest and Southwest District. They're combining together to meet at the White Rock Conservancy in Coon Rapids on November 10th from 12:30 to 3 p.m. And we'll be having a great time to get together then on November 10th. That's the Northwest and Southwest District. Be checking all your information to sign up there, and go to the link that is in the chat to sign up for that great chance to get together. Those are our two announcements. So we are very grateful that everyone is here for our discussion with Bob Leonard. But before we do that, I think we probably should, Christina, reveal the answer to our trivia question. The trivia question asks that about the Iowa poll. Iowa poll is the first state opinion poll established by an American newspaper, and it's the nation's oldest continuously operated state poll. It has tremendous respect in the political world and in the polling world around the country. When was the Iowa poll established? Christina, why don't you put our answer over 80 years ago, 1943. The Iowa poll was announced by the Des Moines Register. So that's the answer to our trivia question, 1943. So, but we want to get to our discussion today. We are so happy that we are joined by journalist Robert Leonard. He's the author of Deep Midwest Politics and Culture. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 2024 campaign as we come into the final days. We'll talk about the different campaigns and the focus that has been laid out by candidates as we get to the end points. Bob, you know Bob very well. He's a former radio news reporter, and he's had bylines in the New York Times, Time Magazine, USA Today, the Des Moines Register, and the Iowa Capital Dispatch, and the Kansas City Star, and many, many more. He has a book of short stories and poetry about rural life entitled Deep Midwest, which was published by Ice Cube Press at North Liberty. And his newsletter is Deep Midwest Politics and Culture. And it's always a pleasure to talk to Bob about rural Iowa and all issues related to rural Iowa. So thank you for being with us, Bob. We really appreciate you being here.
Well, always happy to talk with members of the Iowa Farmers Union. And the first thing that I want to do is to congratulate, many of you. I'm not going to remember everybody, but so many of you are important public intellectuals. And I love seeing your work out there. I love publishing some of your work on my newsletter. I've been doing it for a couple of years. It's seen in 50 states, all 50 states, 50 countries, gets a lot of traction. But what I want to just praise you all. I mean, I know Josh Mansky had a good piece in the Storm Lake Times Pilot. I think he's got one coming out in the Gazette. I know Denise is doing stuff all of the time. Aaron had a piece that he published on the tariffs that I think was really, really good, and it's laid out very nicely. A lot of other things I'm hearing from farmers, and I'm reading about farmers and how the tariffs will crush farmers. Even former, heads of the Iowa Corn Growers Association and other different organizations are saying the tariffs are bad. They're saying Project 2025 is bad. That farmers are going to be impacted. And the Harris has laid out a rural plan. Well, and let me finish this too. Seth Watkins had a great piece that got picked up by the Des Moines Register, the USA Today. Lots of other things. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody. Oh, and I saw a whole bunch of Iowa Farmers Union members and Nina Elkadi, if I'm pronouncing that right, in her newsletter today. She's fantastic. Yes. Just fantastic. And so it was good to see. It was good to see some names that I knew on that list. And this kind of thing really shapes perceptions. I mean, it is so powerful to hear from farmers who know what they're talking about, know what they want. And I think that there's just so much to share. I mean, was Thomas Jefferson our first farmer public intellectual? I think so. And then you all are continuing in that tradition. I think that's great. And I will tell you all that those pieces that I know of, I can confirm they made it to the Harris Walls campaign. So because of your work and the things that you're doing, you're giving her power when she walks into the room because she knows that you're standing there with her. And if you're standing with Trump, then maybe it makes their way to him. I don't know. I don't know how to get a hold of Donald Trump. But anyway, so great work by all of you. I think one of the things that we need to think about is there's a lot of people that are talking about how Lena Khan needs to be booted. I think that would be a big mistake. We all saw her. Where did we see her? In Nevada? I don't know. You were there.
That's correct.
That was a program that you all run, if I remember correctly. Everything runs. So I think that's one of the things that you want to think about too, is how do you support her? I don't think anybody's going to be as hard, on the different kinds of regulations and rules as she is. I think she's a really good person. So it would be nice if we could figure out how to watch her, how to watch her back. I've been in contact with lots of campaigns. I mean, I've seen Miller Meeks, I've seen Bohannon, I've seen a lot of different people. There's going to be a big anti-Zach Nunn campaign coming out, an ad from Progress Iowa and some other groups that are coming together. I don't know. It's so much is happening. One of the most interesting things that I will tell you is I linked to this. I wrote a piece called Us Against the Oligarchs. And the reason I wrote about it, well, it's because it's us against the oligarchs. But in that, I provide a link to the Washington Post, something that came out last Thursday, I believe, that tracks individual online political donations to the Harris Walz campaign and to the Trump campaign. So you can go to your zip code and you can see who's getting the support and votes for those different candidates. And I will say, and the places that I really know the most about are Indianola, Knoxville, and Pella. And Indianola has more individual donors for the Harris Walz campaign. That's not too surprising for me, but I think that's very interesting. Not in Marion County, where Knoxville and Pella are, 60% of the voters in 2020 voted for Trump. Democratic donations in Knoxville are more than donations to Trump.
Hmm.
Now, here's a surprise for you. If you look at Pella, conservative Pella, there are more Democratic donations than there are Republican ones. So if you look at that map, you'll see it. And Denise is telling us that she's looked at that before. Okay, so to me, that's interesting. And it's sort of, I don't know exactly what it means, but I think it bodes well for the Harris administration, and it's nationwide, so you can look up anywhere.
Sure.
I think that the media hasn't done a great job in this set of elections. I think here's my perspective on it, being a rural radio guy for a long time, for 20 years, is that Republican candidates, when you interview them, it's never good enough. They don't want any hard questions. If you ask them a hard question, they'll deny you access. Grassley shut me off for 6 months once because I asked him a question he didn't like. Okay, so every journalist out there has to worry about losing access. So when you see them not asking the tough questions of the Republicans, it's because they fear losing access. Democrats were appreciative for any coverage that you'd give them. They were proud to answer any question. So there's an asymmetry there. And Jim Krissinger, who's written for Laura Bellin, has laid out those asymmetries. So for journalists going out there, there's an asymmetry that is built into the system that it's hard to buck because almost all of us have conservative general managers and owners. And if you're in farm radio or farm news, those are your advertisers. So that's something that people should know, that the journalists and reporters, we are inherently, by the nature of the process and the funding process, not all of us, there are some places that do a good job of it, but it's a risk for the people that are working hard, probably not getting paid enough, and don't want to lose their jobs. At the same time, not all of the campaigns know how to interact with rural media. They think that sending out a press release is enough. No. When I was in radio, I'd get 300 emails a day. You have to follow up with a phone call. You have to ask for an interview. And if they don't want to give you an interview, you have to say why. Don't you want your people to know this? So there's a whole strategy that's associated with it. And I will say that not everybody's using it. I don't want to point fingers, but they just think that sending out a press release is enough. Okay, so I've wandered all over the place. I hope that was what you want, Aaron and Christina, but I mean, I'm happy to talk about anything and so I talk about things I see.
Right.
And learn from. And so, and I want to tell you, Claire Calloway has an incredible piece in food and power. Claire Calloway, look her up. She's a great reporter. She contrasts the Harris and Trump farm plans. That came out this morning. And it's really, really good. So search Claire Calloway. And she's with Open Markets. So I'm going to pause there for a second. So, I mean, I could tell you what our campaign are doing, but those people know more than I do.
I want us to, that's great. I think these are excellent places for us to dive deeper into our discussion, Bob, and we'll encourage people to put questions in the Q&A box. If you have questions, we'll get to as many as we possibly can. I also wanted to, Bob, take you back 4 years, more than 4 years ago, when Vice President Harris was campaigning in Iowa, and you had the chance to interact with her while she was here. What were your impressions about how she approached issues in rural Iowa?
Okay, I'm happy to talk about that. I'm also happy to say I also went on Trump's plane. So I interviewed Trump too.
Really?
In 2015. Yeah, it was very interesting. But let me just say, he didn't talk a lot of substance, but I will say I felt like I was on an airplane with Martha Stewart. He was so fussy. Okay. Now, I mean, that's just the way it is. Don't sit there. Don't touch that. Okay. So, but I didn't get much of substance from him. But Kamala Harris, the first time I saw Kamala Harris was in the Brick House, I think it's called. It's a restaurant, very good restaurant bar in Indianola, and we're all upstairs, a whole bunch of people. She just arrived in the state. She walked up the stairs, and I'm standing at the top of the stairs because I wanted to see her. And she comes up the stairs, and she hears the people talking, and I see her start to smile, and she hit the top of the stairs, and she looked around and was just delighted. It was like she couldn't believe that so many people would come to see her. She was authentic, she was honest, she was kind. She would talk about anything. I thought she had, really good policy positions. But what I really liked was that she cared. She cared. She wanted to talk to people. She would listen to people. Well, and Aaron, you've talked about this too. You met her and you wrote about that. And so I interviewed her, I think, 3 times. Once, I think you were there at Matt Russell's farm. I think that's what you're talking about. And I was at another event in Indianola. There were 800 people there. People loved Kamala Harris. I interviewed her the day before she dropped out. And we get a lot, you hear a lot about all these people writing about the Iowa caucuses that have never been to Iowa really bother me because they talk about her failed caucus campaign. That campaign didn't fail. Iowans loved her. She was fantastic. There were just a lot of candidates and she couldn't get the money. That's what happened. Don't listen to anybody that says she ran a bad campaign. When we're standing, on a hill outside of Indianola, and it's so hot, 2 people fainted, and all those people were there for her. People loved her, and I think she's fantastic. I think she's going to be great. I think she's going to listen. And everybody that acts like she's a dummy, all of these things. I mean, Trump calling her, it's just ridiculous. She is smart. She's put together. She cares. So, I mean, yes. Did that answer your long-winded answer to your question? Yes.
Well, it did. And Bob, our neighbor to the north, Tim Walz, has been selected as running mate. And how did you think that impacted the campaign, the presidential campaigns, and their outreach to places like rural Iowa and in the Midwest?
I think that it made a difference. I saw Tim Walz at the Polk County Steak Fry. And he stood out it was a very hot day again. I was sweating. I don't know if he was, but by the time he was done talking to us, I thought, I think I should move to Minnesota. Because he was talking about, feeding hungry school kids. I mean, that we in Iowa, that Kim Reynolds chooses to let children go hungry. That's just not okay. See, feeding children isn't a cost, it's an investment.
Sure.
And we need to invest in our children. To me, that's the critical, I don't know, I don't know. I just don't understand how that can happen. But he was great. He was just like your neighbor. Like they say, he's the kind of guy that'll pull you out of the ditch when you go in it. He's just a regular guy. Is Donald Trump going to pull you out of the ditch? Donald Trump sees you by the side of the road with a flat tire. Is Donald Trump going to get out and help you change that tire? Tim Walz is going to get out and help you change that tire. Tim Walz will be out there and help change that tire.
Sure. Well, and so those are excellent perspectives on what we're seeing in the presidential race. We don't know what will happen in the presidential race here in Iowa. We know that the numbers tightened, and I don't know if you have thoughts about where things have gone in the intervening weeks since the last Iowa poll on that race. in addition to what your thoughts are on how that race has developed here in Iowa, then we want to talk about some of the congressional races that you're following.
Okay. I think we need to be prepared for the next Iowa poll, because from what I've read, the Iowa poll always drops Democrats at the end. The poll numbers fall. And so that's something that happens every year. And it's discouraging to people. I wouldn't be discouraged. I think that, I don't know. I just think that a lot of this is going to be up to the women and what the women do. And that's just fine with me. I think the more women, moms, grandmothers helping lead the way, I think the better off all of us will be. And so I'm optimistic. And that map, I see Luke dropped in that Washington Post zip code thing that you can look at. That encourages me. And I showed it to Rita Hart. She was in Knoxville yesterday. I showed it to her. She hadn't seen it, and she left very happy seeing that.
Yeah.
And I think that the other places where, essentially abortion's been on the ballot, turnout was expected, and they defeated those propositions or supported them disproportionately to what the polls show. So I think I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
What I'm not optimistic about is Trump doing election denialism and trying to litigate this through the courts and drag their feet until until they have to throw it to the House of Representatives. And if it's under Republican control, then it's going to be President Trump again. And your vote and my vote and everybody's vote won't matter if Kamala Harris wins and the Republicans throw it to the House of Representatives. And that's why it's important. I believe, if you believe in democracy, if you believe in America, and you believe in our system, and you need to vote for people that will defend the Constitution, not dismantle it. And so the races, the state house races, are so important.
And we have a question that asks a little bit about. I think you were on Charity Nebby's Iowa Public Radio show earlier today, and there was a follow-up question from that. There's a lot of fear out there about what happens in the days after the election. You alluded to that too, about the checks and balances that are there. What are your thoughts as what you're hearing as far as nervousness goes about how our nation's reaction will be to the results on Tuesday?
I think no matter what happens, Trump is going to say he won. I think that, and then it's going to be a fight. And I think, and that's why at the beginning, I was saying so many of you, and I see Tony's here. Thank you for running, Tony. Other people have run before, and all of the writers, is that we can make a difference. I think that we continue to fight. It's just like we can't roll over. And we have to hope that our system holds. And, for the first time in my life, I'm worried that it won't hold. And a lot of my Republican friends are telling me, our country's stronger than this. We can do it. We can survive it. Just because Trump says this, it doesn't, even if he wins, it doesn't matter. Our country is strong enough. Our checks and balances are strong enough. My good Republican friends are saying that, and I'm saying, no, they're not. Trump he's been working for years to dismantle it. And so that's why we have to fight. We have to be behind people. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think that's what's going to happen. I think if Harris loses legitimately, she's going to do what every other presidential candidate that lost in history has done, except for Trump, and she will accept that defeat. Let's just hope that we have something to fight for 4 years from now. We have
that's right.
That works.
Yeah. Well, and I think people are girding themselves for a tough few days after the election as we see what the results are. And there are lots of great institutions that are trying to ensure that the process is going to be as transparent and as honest as possible, and supporting those institutions and those groups who are trying to ensure that we have fair election, and reporting and results afterward is something that ordinary people can do too. They can still be involved in helping those organizations who are committed to an honest, equitable process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you're all members of the Iowa Farmers Union. Thank you for doing that. And so, I mean, and now what you can think about, I'm a member. Who else can I get to be a member?
Right.
And let's grow the organization. Let's grow its power. I see Warren has a clarification for me, or he says, keep in mind that the presidential selection goes to the U.S. House. The vote is by state delegation, not by individual Congress member, like the Electoral College that favors Republicans. Yes, thank you, Warren.
Yep.
Yeah, no, join, make a difference. So when somebody says, when your children and grandchildren ask you, what did you do in 2024 to help save democracy? You can say with pride, I fought.
That's right. That's right. Well, and we're joined by Sarah Janes, the executive director of Rural Democracy Initiative, a week ago, Bob, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, and she mentioned how important it is to be thinking of our elections from the bottom of the ballot up, and how important that is, the down ballot pieces of the election, especially, and we're talking about rural places like rural Iowa. And you've written about how important it is to build that process from the bottom of the ballot upward.
That's right, the bottom up, from your supervisors on up. Your city council, if you live in a city. I think that it's absolutely necessary. And I think that it's necessary to get Democrats on the ballots, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If we don't have a two-party system, everybody should be concerned. If we don't have people running in every district, then that are Republicans and Democrats, democracy doesn't work. We see
Right.
what's happened in Iowa when Kim Reynolds gets everything she wants. It doesn't work. And so, we have to continue to fight. We have to bring forward people like Tony that are willing to step forward and do the hard work. So, yeah, I mean, the supervisors, I've got this thing against supervisors. They are just the worst elected officials, I tell you. Somebody good, so they always want something. They want more gravel on their road. As simple as that. And so, and I just have a real problem with them. And I think that people should run for those spaces. And at the County Board of Supervisors, you don't have to be a Republican in rural Iowa to win, because you're winning on who you are, and people know you and they know you're a good person.
Right. Right. Yeah, that messenger piece is so important. In addition to the message being important, that messenger piece is so important too. So, well, Bob, our time has just flown by here, and people are so grateful to hear your comments and your thoughts as we move into the final days of the election here. So thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't get to the questions. If anybody's got a question, I'm typing in my email.
Excellent. We know that you've been so gracious with your time with the Farmers Union, and we'll look forward to gathering again shortly after the election to discuss what happens next. So thanks again for your time, Bob. Really appreciate it.
That's my honor. Thank you.
Again, everyone, this is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. It's our attempt to do outreach to our members and to the general public about important issues, to family farming, to sustainable agriculture, to thriving rural communities, and to healthy landscapes. So if you haven't had a chance to join the Farmers Union yet, please do so. It's so important that we work together to advance those issues important to us with a unified voice. And we are very grateful to do that through our Lunch and Learn and through all of our activities. Don't forget that our state convention is taking place December 6th and 7th in Ames, Iowa. We're looking forward to seeing everyone there, where we set our policy for the year, where we learn from one another and with one another, and we elect our leadership for the organization. So thanks again, Christina, for bringing us together, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone next week.
And don't forget this, our Southwest and Northwest districts are meeting on November 10th in Coon Rapids. I don't know if I wasn't listening, Aaron, if you mentioned that or not.
Thank you so much for reminding us again about that, Christina. Yes, no, November 10th, 12:30 to 3 at White Rock Conservancy. All right, folks, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.